Can JJ McCarthy show the world that he's improved on primetime, or is it all going to fall apart again? Welcome to Crossover Thursday on the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to this crossover edition of the Locked On Cowboys and Locked On Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network. Crossover Thursday is presented by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosier from Locked On Cowboys. He is Luke Braun from Locked On Vikings, and we are previewing the Sunday Night Football matchup between the Vikings and the Cowboys. And Luke, this is a big game for the Cowboys because obviously they're hoping to maybe steal the NFC East away from the Eagles. But from a Vikings perspective, what's the biggest storyline in going into this game? Is it simply, can JJ McCarthy string together 2 good games in a row?
That's it. Yep. JJ McCarthy had a good game. It was against a Commanders team that is very much packed it in for the year. They're already mentally in Cabo pretty clearly. I don't think anybody even over there would argue there. And so it's tempered, right? Oh, great. You beat up on a team they're as injured as they've ever been. They're, 3-9 going into the game, whatever. Can they do this against a team with something to play for, with a little bit more to prove, a little bit more of a chip on their shoulder after the season that the Cowboys have had and the way people have talked about them? And really what we want to see from McCarthy is just a little bit of consistency with like executing kind of the base core concepts of the offense, which they didn't really want to do a lot of earlier in the year. And they've made a whole big deal out of it last week. They've simplified things for him. They've kind of taken some of the mechanic focus away and said, hey, dude, just go play. And it worked out a lot better. So we want to see, was that a fluke or was that really a change they needed to make? And we wish they made it earlier, but hey, now things are going to be much better from here on out.
And for the Cowboys perspective, it's, they need to win the final 4 games to even have a chance of making the playoffs. And you see this Vikings team on the schedule, and you would just assume, it's an automatic win. I think they're 5.5-point favorites over on FanDuel right now, but we know it doesn't really work that way in the NFL. And I hate to be like this guy, but it doesn't really work that way for the Cowboys either. Like, people love getting up to play the Cowboys. And on top of that, look, it's a Sunday night football game. And if you're Justin Jefferson and you think you're the best receiver in the world, you want to have a big game on Sunday night football to remind everybody, hey, I'm still awesome despite our quarterback play being less than stellar. So I would expect Minnesota to have a lot of energy and excitement for a team that's having a down season.
Yeah, we'll see, because they've had a lot of primetime games this year, and that has maybe been more of a harm than a help, where they'll get a little, like, especially McCarthy gets too amped, and now he's going to start firing things over people's heads and stuff. So hopefully we can see a little bit more calm. Hey, you just got a win, first home win of your career. You put together, the first really unambiguously positive game of your career. The next one should be approached exactly the same. They should all be the same to you. Be even keel. Don't let the moment kind of seep into the way that you play. But I wonder how, like, that emotional aspect of it plays in for the Cowboys. The Vikings don't have a lot to play for. They see the same standings. They know what is going on here. They are playing for pride. Some of them are playing for their own contracts or for, guys in contracts years, just trying to put out a good resume for free agency or whatever. Like, the Vikings know what it is.
By the way, there's guys for the Cowboys that are doing the same thing, even though they are in contention. That's not a new thing for just Minnesota,
Yeah, but with Philly on a 3-game losing streak and the Cowboys figuring it out a little bit, getting hot, they beat the Chiefs on Thanksgiving and all that. Is this starting to feel like is everybody kind of rubbing their hands together in Dallas and going, oh, maybe we have this? Or are they just kind of saying, look, one step at a time, let's go win the game in front of us?
Both. And I think part of the reason is they've got to win these next 4. Their schedule's not super easy. They play, obviously, Minnesota. They play the Chargers, and they play the Commanders and the Giants. So it's a manageable schedule. They need a lot to happen. But I think because this literally happened in 2023, where the Cowboys were like 4 games back at this very moment, and Philadelphia just completely fell apart, and the Cowboys were able to steal the division. I think Cowboy fans are feeling like, hey, there's a shot that this really happens. Like, there's a shot that the Eagles just self-combust, and we are hosting a home playoff game. But you're right. It's one game at a time. And I want to go back to this primetime part of it, because the Cowboys have had a lot of primetime games. Just the nature of being the Dallas Cowboys, right? But one thing that we see from time to time, and Landon McCool, my co-host, we joke about it a little bit, is you get sweaty Dak in some of these primetime games where he's so amped up, like he's got a full sweat on before the game starts, and they tend to start out really slow. So is that?
Yeah, I remember that last time the Vikings played the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, 2019.
Yeah, sweaty Dak happens every once in a while, and I think you saw a little bit of that in Detroit. Is that what is happening right now, you think, with JJ McCarthy and this Minnesota team?
I think there's more than that to it. I think that the way that they tried to coach him up, they really tried to optimize everything, and I think they ended up overcoaching him. So he did show up to, noon games like that, just amped as hell, and he was firing everything way too high. Mechanics were all messed up. He was missing. He was rushing through his reads, or he was turning things. Like it's been a disaster. The Vikings are a car crash this year. But they're more talented than that, than the way that they've played. But they haven't been able to put it all together. They haven't been able to make mistakes. The Flores defense isn't what it really was supposed to be. So I kind of
ask you about that really quickly, because I think
sure.
Landon and I were talking about this on our squad show this week, where this is an aggressive defense that's going to blitz, and it seems like they're getting a little bit healthier on that side of the ball. But how come it hasn't had the same teeth that we're used to seeing?
It's turnovers. The answer to that is turnovers. Everything else has really been the same. They've been getting pressure at a really high clip. They've been blitzing less-ish than they did in the first couple of years, but still blitzing a lot. They've been able to, they've been really up and down in the run game, but really it's that they have not had turnovers. The most frustrating thing about this defense, which is wild for me to say, they're coming off a shutout, and they're actually really hot right now. They played phenomenally against Seattle, and it was just way overshadowed by the fact that Max Brosmer couldn't score. And then they shut out Washington. So this unit is white hot. Don't get it twisted. But when it comes to tackling, they love to tackle high and go for the ball, and they just haven't forced any fumbles that way since like week 3. They forced like one fumble that way, one peanut punch from behind in Detroit. And that's like it. So that has led to really good run production against the Vikings. Plus, every once in a while, you'll get a game where the D tackles just can't hold up, and they'll just kind of get blown out. And even with everybody fitting everything up properly, it's just they just get a lot of space. So you can just kind of line up, run duo, push for 4 yards, and just do that over and over. And the Vikings have always been a team where, like, if you execute really conservative stuff 12 times in a row, it's a touchdown. And that's really hard to do. And they kind of know that, and they're okay with that. And they're like, if you're going to score on this is how you have to do it. But really, it's been that, Harrison Smith ain't the guy he used to be. So if he's going to jump a route, it's going to be a lot slower. He just got his first interception of the year against Marcus Mariota.
Mariota, according to Collinsworth. But yes, go ahead.
Mariota, if you're a real one.
There you go.
And, Isaiah Rodgers had his explosion earlier in the year. But like he and Byron Murphy, they're all playing really conservative, back it up, completion, and then go up and tackle, and then go miss the tackle because they're going for the ball. And so that has led to some pretty frustrating moments over the course of the year. But the general result is still very much, you're going to be under pressure. You're going to need your blitz counters. You're going to have to figure out what's going on at the line of scrimmage, and guys are going to make plays. And it just feels so hollow when they, hold a team to 19 points because the offense could only score 6.
I'm going to talk about the Cowboys' biggest storyline when we get to matchups here in the next segment. But really quickly, is the Vikings fan base freaking out the same way the Cowboys fan base is about Nahshon Wright having this awesome season with Chicago? Because it seems like we get a question every day about what happened with Nahshon Wright. How come they couldn't evaluate him? How come they couldn't get him to play this level?
I think all that energy is going to Sam Darnold. We're all distracted.
That's true. You got other things to worry about. That's true.
We got bigger fish to fry, man. No, that I don't know. That kind of thing happens. And to be honest, the interceptions for Nahshon Wright are cool, but he's been on the wrong end of some stuff too. He's having a very rookie Trevon Diggs season which I don't know if that's necessarily like, I don't know if you want that as bad as you think you want that.
No, you don't. It's very unreliable. But there you go. I bet you guys weren't expecting some Nation Wright conversation in this crossover, but that's how we do it. All right, let's talk about some of the biggest matchups to watch, including George Pickens against these Vikings cornerbacks. We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. The holiday seasons is one of the best time for sports. We've got bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes, and it's all happening at once. And we're all making choices every day. But one of the most fun places to make the right call is at PrizePicks, because PrizePicks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less at least 2-player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, it's fast, and it's available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. I love that we just get sports all for the next month and a half. It's unbelievable, and PrizePicks is the best way to get in on the action. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Welcome back to this crossover edition of the Locked On Cowboys and Locked On Vikings podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We'd also like to thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now it's time to take it to the next level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Cowboys and Locked On Vikings with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and so much more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Make sure you check out the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, Luke, let's talk about some matchups in this one. What is one of the matchups that you are really excited to see on Sunday night?
I was actually going to talk about the George Pickens thing too.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
The Vikings. So the Vikings have small corners. That's the deal, right? The only corner they had over 6 foot was Jeff Okudah, and I don't think he's going to play again this year. He had his second concussion. Season's like pretty much over. Like I don't really.
Why risk it?
Yeah. And I go into a lot of matchups saying like, oh, big receiver versus our small corners. And like, I'll point that out. And then it kind of turns out to not really be any different than what they would do any week. But I still think that it bears mentioning with Lamb and with Pickens and this big dynamic duo on the outside. The last team I would say the Vikings played that had something like that. You know, there's a lot of interesting receiver cores out there, like what Green Bay is doing, but the rest, like a #1 and a #2 that really could be #1s anywhere, would be like the Bengals. And we didn't get a great look in that game because Jake Browning dissolved and it was a bunch of, terrible interceptions and fumble problems and stuff. So I think that's a good sort of barrier for like just how much can this blitzing, what the Vikings do up front, paper over a secondary that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensa really moneyballed and has gotten away with by and large, except for some problems in the safety room. They benched a guy. They're starting another guy right now. That Harrison Smith is getting old, all that stuff. But it's been definitely touch and go with that. But I would say the Vikings probably aren't going to man up a lot. So I don't think the answer to George Pickens is going to be, well, let's see if Byron Murphy can play bigger than he is. But no, it's going to be a guy up over the top of him. It's going to be a bracket. It's going to be, let's blitz and let's say you can't get he'll be as open as you want. Can't get the ball out. But the question for me is, what do the Cowboys do to attack the middle of the field? Because that's where the Vikings have had holes all year long. That is where their weakness has been all year long. They've done a better job recently of sort of shoring that up, but I still think that if you're Dallas, that's the game plan you walk in with, is we are going to throw over the middle. So is that those guys, or does this become like a Jake Ferguson game?
Well, what's funny is they've got these receivers and none of them are huge. I mean, Pickens is 6'3", maybe 195
we got like
pounds.
5'11".
Right. Well, this was the same thing that happened to Dallas last week against Detroit. Detroit's got a bunch of small corners. And you would think the Cowboys' size would win out, but they're not really they're different than like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, but those guys can just like out physical you. I think Pickens and CD are very much like, hey, these are guys that are just super freak athletes that can make plays after the catch. They like having the ball on the run. And that's why you see a lot of slants. Like you see this offense throw a bunch of slant routes, and we've seen Minnesota get exposed in some of that before. I remember the
Chargers
game. Yeah, I was gonna say the Steeler game.
Or that one. That play, Marcus, that play got 2 different people benched.
Exactly. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Crazy how much they reacted to that slant touchdown. That thing broke the Vikings like psyche.
Yeah, it's one play. It shouldn't have happened, but I will be interested to see what the Cowboys do there. But honestly, the biggest storyline and matchup for me is just George Pickens versus George Pickens, because that Thursday game, the effort was at an all-time low. And there's some reasons for that. I think Detroit had a really good game plan. Richard Sherman called out George Pickens, and it's turned into this big thing where Brian Schottenheimer has had to have a sit down with him and talk to him about how he needs to handle business, on the field and off the field. I'm curious to see what happens on Sunday. Like, do we get the all-time, like, George Pickens going 110%, trying to show everybody that last week was a one-off, or is it more of the same? And do we see Minnesota bracket him and try to frustrate him? And, I don't know. That's why I'm so fascinated to see what happens with Pickens.
I'm thinking about something similar on the other side, right? Justin Jefferson's having a pretty down year. He has not played his best, but most of it has not been his fault. Obviously, there's machinations going on above him that are ruining the Vikings offense. And last week, even with the offense playing a little better, he gets 2 catches for 11 yards. And he's had strung together a number of these kind of total no-show games. That's not crazy for Justin Jefferson when you see a defense that comes in and just like super overly commits to him and then somebody else goes off. That happens with the Vikings a lot, and it's not a concern about Jefferson at all. In fact, if you're the Vikings, you're like, all right, yeah, do that and go ahead. And then we got like 3 other guys that got 100 yards, which has happened. So my question would become with the Cowboys defense, and I know the Cowboys defense has struggled a lot this year, maybe less so recently. What is the plan for attacking the Vikings? I mean, obviously there's going to be a lot of let's try to confuse the young quarterback who's struggling, but there's still speedster Jordan Addison. There's still Justin Jefferson. There's still Jalen Naylor, who's got speed in his own right. TJ Hawkinson, who's been really clutch at times. How do the Cowboys usually want to attack this, especially with the way that line has kind of reformulated itself over the course of the season after the Parsons trade?
I don't know. Honestly, I've been so confused and frustrated by Matt Eberflus this year, where you have some games where the secondary is playing with really good leverage and they're aggressive and they're in the right spots. And then you have games like against Detroit where, I mean, the field could have been 500 yards long and they weren't going to stop them, right? So I would like to think, during the last 10 days that they've come up with a plan to try to slow down these receivers. But for the most part, it's just been, we're going to play a bunch of zone. We hope the guys are in the right spots and we hope the pass rush gets there. And if it doesn't, we'll live to fight another down.
Shootout.
Yeah, I think that's the way this game is trending. And that's how a lot of these Cowboy games have trended, where it's Russell Wilson versus Dak Prescott, a game to first to 40 wins. I kind of think that's how this one's going to go.
And I don't trust the Vikings at all in that kind of game.
Well, you haven't played Matty Eberflus in a minute, so you'll be all right. Don't worry about it.
But here's the thing. Like, they can't go through a drive without some kind of terrible self-inflicted wound that puts them behind the chains that ruins the drive, right? Like, they had a game with 8 false starts this year. They will take a bad sack or something that is totally just the offense screws up. They miscommunicate and somebody gets in for free and makes the play of their career. But
that's how Matt Eberflus coaches on defense. It's like, we'll give you 7 to 8 yard gains over and over because eventually you're going to mess up. The problem is that even when they've gotten into some of these like 3rd and 22s, they're still giving up the big plays where it's why this game, both sides, I expect to be able to
with
move
the Bears. Last year, the Bears, in both the Vikings-Bears games, the Vikings converted a 3rd and 17 on them, and it was the same play call both times. It was like a catch and run underneath. But I'll give you one thing. So this is from last year when Eberflus was with the Bears, and how they attacked the Vikings I thought was really interesting. They took they played cover 3 a lot, which is what they wanted to be doing, but they locked off Jalen Johnson and Justin Jefferson. And it actually took Justin Jefferson out of the game pretty well. Jalen Johnson had a fantastic game. The problem was they didn't do a good enough job replacing Jalen Johnson's zones when Jefferson would go across the field, because you have to adjust. If you're going to take cover 3 and you're going to lock off one of those players into man coverage, well, you have to adjust the spacing if that player goes somewhere that, wasn't the initial zone. And they didn't do a good enough job of that. And it led up some of the key plays of that game. It was a game in Soldier Field. But it did take Justin Jefferson out. So if the Cowboys want to do that and say, hey, we're going to take Justin Jefferson away from JJ McCarthy and make him beat us elsewise, and it's not going to be, he's not Sam Darnold and he can't do what they did to Eberflus last time, that's a reasonable game plan.
I would agree. We'll see. I mean, the Cowboys play a ton of cover 3. I would expect that to be the case here in week 15. Let's talk about some keys to victory, what the Vikings and the Cowboys need to do to get that W on Sunday night. We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Car Gurus. Car shopping should feel exciting and not confusing and stressful. And with Car Gurus, you get the confidence that you deserve. They cut through all the noise so that you can actually see the best deals on cars that you want. Because when it comes to a big purchase, you deserve the best deal. And Car Gurus makes the entire process simple by giving you real information, real deal ratings, and more listings than anyone else so that you can shop the way that you want. Use Car Guru's deal ratings to compare cars quickly without having to guess whether the price is fair or not. You're going to love being able to filter by everything, including mileage, trim, features, so you can only see the cars that you want to see. And their price drop alerts are a lifesaver. You'll get notified right away the second a car becomes available that has a better deal than maybe what you were anticipating. It's absolutely fantastic. Car Gurus connects you with trusted dealerships for a transparent and hassle-free buying process. With over 4 million listings, the most of any major automotive marketplace, you'll always find the best deal. So shop the way that you want with tools, data, and unbiased deal ratings that make it easy. Buy or sell your next car today at cargurus.com. That is cargurus.com, cargurus.com. This episode is brought to you by Zocdoc. Guys, it's 2025. It's almost 2026. And the days of waiting for someone or something to become a full-blown emergency before you see the doctor, they're over. We're done with it. No more walking it off for 6 months, pretending like that weird stiffness in your shoulder is just you sleeping wrong. It's time to take your health seriously, and Zocdoc makes it easier than ever before, because staying healthy is more than just hitting the gym or eating right. It's about actually getting things checked out when something feels maybe just a little bit off. Using Zocdoc makes scheduling easier. You can search for in-network doctors and book right in the app. Real appointment times that are listed, including same-day visits. No more back and forth phone calls or waiting weeks to be seen. They're super helpful for routine checkups and those little issues that you've been needing to get checked out. So stop putting off your doctor's appointments and get the care that you need. Go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That is ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. Welcome back to this crossover edition of the Locked On Cowboys and Locked On Vikings podcast. Look, let's talk about what these teams need to do to get a win. Give us some keys to victory here on Sunday night.
For the Vikings, it's been kind of the same thing, and they have not accomplished this a lot, which is, that'll make you 5-8. And it's turnovers. They have to win the turnover battle. Take care of the ball, be aggressive on defense, make turnovers happen, make guys make mistakes. I would love to see an overly amped up Dak Prescott throw stupid interceptions. We've seen that kind of thing go down before. It's got to be something like that, because I don't think that if this turns into that shootout kind of game, I don't think the Vikings can put up 40 on air. I don't think they can put up 40 against anybody in this league. They just don't have the consistency in them. So I think there has to be either the defense needs to step up, get a bunch of stops, put a lid on this absolutely dynamic Cowboys offense, or get a couple of turnovers and make it the kind of game where, everybody's scoring back and forth. And if you get one short field, suddenly, you get the lead and then you can play with it. That has to be it. But to be honest, I kind of think, what'd you say at FanDuel? 5.5 right now? I kind of think
right
that's a crazy underestimation.
Yeah.
The Vikings are coming off of like this cathartic win. I can feel the letdown in my bones.
Well, this is us being a Cowboy and Viking fan. Like, we're just used to like being let down when we get a little bit too big for our britches, right? Like, it's just in our nature.
It's just the way that this team is built has not ever proven consistency. And they've like every time they find one good thing, they take one step forward. The next time they like either lean into it way too much, or get too excited about it, and then it doesn't sustain, and then they take 3 steps back. That's just the way that this team has been. I would love to see them prove me wrong, win that turnover battle, keep the flags off the field, just play clean ball and see what happens.
So under previous iterations of this Cowboys team, they've been front runners, right? They jump out early leads and then they just blow teams out. But when they got behind, they really struggled to make comebacks, right? Unfortunately, it's been a little bit flipped this year where the Cowboys got behind 21-0 against Philadelphia, and then they turned things on. They got behind early against Kansas City, turned things on and won that game. And they almost did it against Detroit. And I'm wondering if they just it takes them about a quarter or so to get into the game, Luke, before they really get going. And that's why they're averaging, I think it's like 3.6 points per game per first quarter, which is like one of the worst in the league, despite this being arguably the NFL's best offense. You can't let Minnesota hang around in this game. Like, you don't want this to be a 20-17 game going into the fourth quarter. And that's why I'd love to see Brian Schottenheimer and Dak Prescott be super aggressive early in this game to try to build a lead and then play with their positive game script.
I have a guessing game for you.
Okay.
So the Vikings have very often this year gone with single-digit points in the first half, and very often without a touchdown in the first half. They've played 13 games. Can you guess how many times they have scored single-digit points in the first half?
8.
And it's 7 or fewer. Is as single digit. I'm not talking about like 9-point halves where they almost.
I'll say 8 times.
It would be 9. You've underestimated this. 9 out of 13 games they have not scored at all. And I think only one of them had any touchdowns. The rest of them was 0, 3, 6. They have gotten to disgustingly slow starts all season long.
Well,
So
Luke, the Cowboys haven't scored twice in the first quarter more than once this year. It was against Washington. Surprise, surprise. That's the only time they've scored twice in the first quarter. Like, they are such slow starters. That's why we're talking about this game being a really high scoring game. It wouldn't shock any of us if it's like, hey, welcome back. It's 6-3 going into the third quarter.
Half. For sure it could be.
Yeah.
And you know what? The thing about all those 6-point halves that the Vikings have had is that the defense has kept them in it. So they've gone into halftime down 10-6, and it's still kind of a ball game, and we'll see what happens in the second half. If it's that kind of game, then maybe there's a chance for something fluky to happen. But I think they have to find something. I do want to follow up on one question before we go here. With the kind of the game plan that I suggested about cover 3, but lock a guy off, and let's see if Eberflus decides he wants to do that again. Who would be the corner that does that? Because the secondary is fascinating to me personally. I talked a lot about Savon Revel in the draft. I loved him. We have Reddy Stewart, who the Vikings cut this year. Deron Bland is a fascinating player. So who would be the guy that they would trust the most in man coverage against a Justin Jefferson?
It's probably going to be Deron Bland. Okay. And that presents its own challenges, because if it's Deron Bland with some safety help, that means you are leaving Reddy Stewart and Savon Revel one-on-one against, like, I love Jordan Addison because I think he can win one-on-one against just about everybody.
Well, and they would be in cover 3. So
right.
They wouldn't be in like true men, they would have an inside help or over the top or whatever.
Well, you would think so, but Kenneth Murray's our linebacker, so not
okay.
Really.
Well, I'm trying.
So in theory, yes, you would have help, but I wish in theory was one of their linebackers right now. Yeah, it's gonna be a mess. But it's a beautiful mess.
Well, then maybe my plan is not as good of a plan with that.
I think that's
they had a Jalen Johnson in Chicago, right? Like that's this guy doesn't exist in Dallas.
The Cowboys are going to try playing a bunch of cover 3. We'll see how it works. Okay. Unfortunately, you've seen the results this year with Dallas' defense. Nothing really works unless they're getting pressure with their front 3. You're going to see a lot of 3 defensive tackle looks with Kenny Clark, Osa Digizua, and of course Quinton Williams. If those guys can win up front, I think the Cowboys will have a pretty good chance. That is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making this crossover edition of the Locked On Cowboys and Locked On Vikings podcast your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe and follow our podcast so you get all of the latest episodes. And did Locked On Cowboys or Locked On Vikings make your Spotify Wrapped? Prove it to us on social media to secure a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Just tag our national Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform, and we'll drop you a code. Be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club to get free or your favorite shows, ad-free and exclusive access to the members-only Discord channel. And make sure you check out the Locked On NFL podcast, 2 shows every single day. Luke, enjoy the game, and I can't wait to talk soon.